Hello and welcome back to Beyond the Borders. Now I am taking you to a country very, very close. In fact, it's just south of the border. It's Mexico. So, I have taken you before on several countries that have been far away, such as Slovakia, North Korea, Italy, and of course South Africa. But this time I am going quite literally beyond the border of the United States to Mexico, the country south of the border. You, of course, when you think of Mexico, what do you think of? Chipotle, mariachi, just as I sang, or even better, Cancun, spring break. Okay, maybe you don't want to think of that one. But anyway, Mexico's political situation has become quite complicated in recent years and months, and I would like to discuss it. First, like every video we've done so far, we need some historical context. Between the 1920s and the year 2000, Mexico was ruled by the Partido Revolucionario Institucional, or more commonly known as the PRI. Basically, through most of the PRI's governance, they ruled through a system called clientelism. Clientelism means this: I give you benefits, and you give me votes. Simple as that. And of course, there is also a lot of more corruption, of course, and then, of course, ballot stuffing. Not quite as good as turkey stuffing, though. And all sorts of authoritarian tactics. Meanwhile, Mexico remained a very closed country, with relations with the United States quite distant, in spite of geographical proximity. However, in the year 2000, as I mentioned before, Mexico changed. In fact, the PRI finally lost an election and gave up power to the opposition PAN party, led by the former president of Mexico, Vicente Fox. The PAN was able to rule for 12 years until, in 2012, they gave up power and replaced by the supposedly nuevo, or the new PRI. Turns out, they weren't very new after all. The president who replaced them was a man named Enrique Peña Nieto, or EPN as he's known, and he is not very popular. In fact, recent opinion polls show that his approval rating is an earth-shattering 12%. Now, why is this? Well, turns out that Peña's promises of big reforms and big structural changes all turned out to be duds. There was a recent case in 2014 of 43 students who disappeared in a scandal that many tied to the government and their relationship with the drug cartels. Lovely. And you'll hear about those cartels later. Another interesting story that I heard from a Mexican is that one time they asked the president what his 3 favorite books were. Well, he named the Bible, which in Mexico, since everyone is Catholic, makes sense. The second book, he could not think of the right title, and he just couldn't name a third book at all. Reminds me of Rick Perry. Oops. And of course, Mexico still remains as corrupt as ever. A few old families and oligarchs, of course Peña's family is one of them, still control the system, and Mexicans are not happy with it all. So now we are doing our quiz.
Alright, and I'm here off screen today, just trying something new.
His voice is here.
We got a close-up on Sam, so it's very good. So this is a quiz on Mexico, yes, of
Mexico
course.
only, yes.
I wanted to do something Mexican for the quiz. So your first question is, which 2 empires preceded modern-day Mexico?
Oh, the Mayan and the Aztec.
And that's not an option.
What?
That is true.
Well, but then there's the Spanish Empire, perhaps?
Well, it's Aztec and Spanish.
Okay, well, close. Well, Mayan was more of Central American, but they were.
Yeah.
But you have to know that the Mayans, they were really, really smart people. I mean, they were way ahead of their time.
When did Mexico transition to democracy?
In the 1990s, 1980s, 1990s. That's a big part of our
1988. 1734, 2000, 1942.
1988.
Ooh, that's wrong. It's 2000.
Well, yeah, that's a complicated question, so we will get into that more in the video.
Mexico is almost 3 times larger than what U.S. state?
Texas.
Or Ohio, or Maine, or New Mexico.
Almost 3 times larger than... so the answer is not Texas? California?
Texas is correct.
Okay, well that's what I thought.
And your next question. Why did the number 43 become significant in September 2014?
Oh yes, 43 students went missing. And that will also be in the video.
There you go. Wow. Amazing.
And they were never found again. But, not to be a spoiler.
Uh-oh. Spoiler alert.
Mexico is facing 2 very serious problems. The first one is crime. In Mexico, you have about a 1 in 5,000 chance of being murdered if you live there. Yeah, isn't that fun? Yeah, it's way higher than here. Also, kidnapping and extortion are serious issues of all relating to Mexico's notorious drug cartels that have basically ruled the country ever since the mid-2000s. And meanwhile, the politicians, the judges, and the police are either A, helpless and can't do anything about it, or B, in on the whole scam themselves. So basically, Mexico has no real rule of law, and instead they have rule by the cartels. Isn't that great? So, if you want a good lesson, don't do drugs, kids, because that means you're buying stuff from some really nasty people down in Mexico. Yeah, just look up cartel beheadings. Last March, a California man was actually shot at a resort in Puerto Vallarta, one of Mexico's most popular tourist destinations. While he survived, it sure doesn't help Mexico's reputation as a safe place, which, by the way, it isn't. Perhaps more serious than Mexico's crime problems are Mexico's trade problems. The Mexican economy relies a lot, I mean a lot, on trade and investment with the United States. And that agreement had been going very well until America had elected a president who continuously believes that Mexico is, quote, ripping off the United States through its trade deficit. I'm not going to get into trade economics here, but belief that trade deficits are the end of the world is really, really, really simplistic. Since the economic opening of the 1990s, Mexico has become a regional Latin American headquarters of many American and other multinational corporations, such as Volkswagen and Coca-Cola, mainly because of its business-friendly and predictable environment, contrary to most of the rest of Latin America. Yeah, it shows how bad they are. Many experts credit, in fact, the political opening as related to the economic opening. Once Mexico stopped closing up its doors to American influence, they not only were introduced to free markets, but they were also introduced to democracy, American style. Well, not quite American style, but close. Close enough. With cartels. This democracy, at least, allowed the PRI to eventually give up power to the PAN. But, however, this system may not last very long, and I will tell you why. An election is coming up in Mexico. In fact, it will be, I think, on the 1st of July. And the front-runner, his name is Andrés Manuel López Obrador. This is his 3rd attempt at running for the presidency. While runner-up the first 2 times, most analysts predict that he will no longer be the bridesmaid, and he will win the Mexican presidential election. Most controversially, in 2006, when AMLO, as he is known, lost the election very narrowly, he staged a huge protest in Mexico City's main square. He occupied the place for weeks, in fact, and eventually proclaimed himself, after losing all legal battles, the legitimate president of Mexico, and had a mock swearing-in. While that event was highly embarrassing for AMLO, he somehow came back and was runner-up again in 2012. Now in 2018, he is running and expected to win. He scares a lot of people, particularly multinational and American corporations, which fear that he could make life more difficult for them, or in a worst case scenario, throw them out. There are also warnings, as ominously predicted by the New York Times in an op-ed called "The End of Mexican Democracy," that he could revert to being an old-fashioned Latin American caudillo and basically be a dictator. However, AMLO supporters say that he is merely there to fight the patriarchy of both the PRI and the PAN and eliminate their power and give more power back to the people and reduce corruption and crime. Doesn't sound great? Well, until you heard that there was a recording of him that showed him basically being corrupt. Yeah, no one's clean down there. No one. So AMLO's challenge in the final weeks of the election is to A, promise foreign investors that he's not going to be as radical as he claims he is on the campaign trail, while promising his voters that he will be just as radical as foreign investors don't want him to be. Yes, so welcome to Mexican politics, and stay tuned for the election on July 1st. So next time, I will take you back to Italy, because who doesn't love Italy, and of course pasta, and their also chaotic political situation. We'll leave quiz questions below, and hasta luego, as they would say in Mexico.